It's day 2 of Narendra Modi's visit to the United States, and it holds significance because it's Modi's first United Nations Assembly address that happens in just an hour from now. India will be looking to give a befitting reply to Nawaz Sharif, who raked up Kashmir yet again on a global platform yesterday. He didn't just rake it up, he also mentioned the word plebiscite. India's response on the UN General Assembly floor is imminent, as India has sought its right to reply at the UNGA floor on the raging issue. While Modi will be visiting heads of all key Asian neighbors, including Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, India and Pakistan will not hold any bilateral talks. The Indo-Pak face-off at the UN is not a new phenomenon by any stretch of imagination. In the past too, India has given Pakistan a backhanded, befitting reply at the UN. In his 2003 UNGA address, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee turned down Pakistan's offer for a Kashmir ceasefire, saying that he will not negotiate with state-sponsored terrorists and a state that indulges in terrorism itself. And exactly 10 years later, in 2013, addressing the 68th UN General Assembly session, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh named Pakistan the epicenter of terrorism in South Asia. Modi's address may also include expansion and reform of the UN Security Council, another aspect that Nawaz Sharif felt pressured to venture into. His speech is likely to focus on the United Nations peacekeeping operations, as India remains one of the world's largest contributors to the global peacekeeping force. Let's go straight across to Editor Strategic Affairs, Gaurav Sawant, joining us live from New York City. Gaurav, less than an hour to go for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech at the UN General Assembly. A huge amount of anticipation over the last 24 hours, especially in light of the manner in which Nawaz Sharif raked up the Kashmir issue in his speech itself. What are you hearing, Gaurav, about what we can expect? One of the anticipations is a robust response.
There will be a robust speech, no doubt. The Prime Minister will unfurl his vision for how the UN needs to be reformed, and this reform should take place by the year 2015, that is next year, which is the 70th year of the United Nations. The Prime Minister will talk about how India needs to play a much bigger role in the times to come, and also how India, the United States and these countries need to come together for development of the region. As far as Pakistan is concerned, Shiv, India made it very clear yesterday itself in its right to nations. Of course, through a diplomat, India did not escalate it to the level of the Prime Minister. India told the United Nations that Kashmir is an integral part of India. It was completely unnecessary for Pakistan to have raised it. This matter is to be resolved amicably post the Shimla agreement. The Prime Minister, of course, as you rightly pointed out, there will be a robust response, but a robust vision of the Prime Minister for the times to come, Shiv.
Well, there's going to be a huge amount of anticipation. There's already a lot of buzz surrounding the manner in which Narendra Modi will respond to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. There has been speculation about the Prime Minister of India being briefed. But what is that response really going to be? India has taken a claim to respond on the UNGA floor as far as Nawaz Sharif is concerned. It's only a matter of time. The time for speculation is over, because in less than an hour from now, Gaurav Sawant and the rest of our special team in New York City will be bringing you live coverage of Narendra Modi's expected speech at the UN General Assembly, his first ever at the UN General Assembly. A huge amount of anticipation awaits not just what Narendra Modi will speak as far as Pakistan is concerned, but also his vision moving forward. And Gaurav, Prime Minister Modi had provided quite an indication of what he's going to speak about at this UN General Assembly. So while Pakistan is only one small aspect of it, a broader vision is also expected.
Absolutely, Shiv. In fact, even as you and I speak, the Prime Minister's massive cavalcade has just entered the UN premises. It is in fact driving towards the UN premises. We are a street away. We are at the 46th Street, and the Prime Minister's cavalcade will enter from the 47th Street. This is where, either supporters or protesters were to come. But as the Prime Minister moves towards the United Nations, there is anticipation that he will talk about what the world should move forward to, and what was Swami Vivekananda's vision when Swami Vivekananda had come to Chicago, and how now the world needs to move forward, combat terror together, combat poverty together, cleanliness, sanitation, economy. These are the main focus areas of the Prime Minister's address. A vision of a global leader is what our sources in the Ministry of External Affairs told us. Pakistan will be a small footnote, a minor irritant in the bigger scheme of things, Shiv.
It's going to be a minor irritant in the bigger scheme of things. As Gaurav pointed out, this is a coming of age, an emergence event as far as Narendra Modi is concerned. Now, the thing about Pakistan's rhetoric and its language has been provocative. It's been that way from the get-go. It's been that way from long before both leaders actually landed in New York City. But it has continued in New York City with Nawaz Sharif on expected lines picking up the issue of Kashmir. Gaurav, just take us through, what Narendra Modi's day has been like today. He began by visiting the 9/11 memorial in Lower Manhattan. Just take us through, describe for us what his day has been like so far.
Shiv, there was immense symbolism in the Prime Minister visiting the 9/11 memorial. In fact, this was at his request that the US government arranged this, is what sources tell us. The symbolism here, the message that is being sent out is India and the United States stand together in this war against global terrorism. United States lost people, 3,000 people from around the world were killed in the attack on the World Trade Center by terrorists based out of Pakistan and Afghanistan. What the Prime Minister is indicating is 8 out of those were Indians. There were 8 Indians killed in this terror attack. Their names are inscribed there. The Prime Minister went through those names of the 8 Indians who were killed in this terror attack. We stand united in the war on terror, and this is a war that needs to be fought without fear or favor, without partiality, and without turning a blind eye to some state sponsors of terror. That's the message the Prime Minister carries. That's one part of the story. He's also engaging very closely with neighbors here, minus Pakistan. He's meeting Bangladesh's Prime Minister, Sri Lanka's President, Nepal's Prime Minister at his hotel.
Right.
And that is again engaging with them. And what sources are telling us is the Prime Minister may also have time over the weekend to meet Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's Prime Minister, for the first time at a multilateral event.
Much to look forward to as far as Narendra Modi is concerned. We're gonna start with our special primetime broadcast live from New York. Now is our consulting editor of the India Today group, Rajdeep Sardesai, with special guest to take you through the rest of our coverage. Rajdeep, it's over to you.
Thanks very much, Shiv. Yes, it is a bright and sunny day, just the kind of day that Narendra Modi would have liked. It is almost as if New York is extending a very warm, rather hot welcome for Narendra Modi. Unusual weather for this time of the year here in New York, but in a short while from now, the Prime Minister will be speaking at the UN General Assembly. I'm told he's going to do a round of the UN General Assembly. He's going to be taken around the UN General Assembly. We'll also meet the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, but get a sense really of the United Nations, Narendra Modi's first visit there as Prime Minister. With me at the moment is Lisa Kurtis, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation in Washington. She's here with us and one of the most respected voices on South Asia. Lisa, give us a sense of the importance of Narendra Modi at the United Nations General Assembly, given what the Pakistani Prime Minister said yesterday by reinforcing Pakistan's traditional focus on Kashmir and a plebiscite. Do you believe Narendra Modi should just ignore Sharif, or will he necessarily have to respond to him?
Well, I'm really hoping that Prime Minister Modi ignores Nawaz Sharif's statement at the UN.
You want him to ignore the statement?
I think so, because I think what it reflects more is Nawaz Sharif's weakness. he's really fighting for his political survival. He's under the gun from the military, so he probably had compulsions why he had to make such an unhelpful speech, reverting back to Kashmir and, old shibboleths about the issue. But Prime Minister Modi is here for a different reason. This is his debut on the international stage. He's here to explain his agenda, his vision for India. And if he talks about Pakistan, or he tries to make a controversial statement regarding Kashmir, that's what's going to grab the headlines. And he'll miss the point of his visit, which is to talk about India's role on the global stage.
Well, what specifically? What would you like to hear? What would America like to hear today from Narendra Modi? This is his first major public appearance as Prime Minister on American soil, albeit at a multilateral forum. What do you believe America would like to hear? What will make the headlines of the New York Times? Because I keep saying there's no mention of Modi, no mention of Sharif in this morning's New York Times. What will it take for the Indian Prime Minister to strike a chord with the United Nations and the American public?
Well, I think talking about India's role, I think the U.S. will be looking for Prime Minister Modi to indicate that India is ready to cooperate on the myriad of global challenges that we face today. I think this is the importance of Modi's visit. I don't think there will be any major breakthroughs like the civil nuclear deal, like we saw, under the Bush administration. But I think this visit is maybe even more important than previous years because of the global challenges and because of the fact that the U.S. and India have so many converging interests. I think Prime Minister Modi said it best himself. He said that the U.S. and India share values and interests, even though their circumstances may be different. And that's what's important. So I think that U.S. leaders will be looking for Modi to convince them that India is ready to play a role on the global stage and cooperate on these global challenges.
You've used that word global stage, global challenges repeatedly. One of those global challenges is right here on the front of the New York Times. Two big headlines on ISIS. Australia fears reach of ISIS into its cities. 3 nations, Denmark, Britain and Belgium, offer limited support to attack on ISIS. Is ISIS now the big global challenge? Should Narendra Modi be talking about the global threat of terror rather than just limiting himself to terror emanating out of Pakistan? Does India need to make the point that for us terrorism is not just Pakistan-centric, it's also now a global challenge that every country, in a sense, must respond to?
Absolutely, and the terrorism challenges in South Asia are connected to the terrorism challenges in the Middle East. And I think if he makes that connection, that would be very helpful, and it would be accurate, because if you look at Afghanistan, the Taliban's already starting to make gains there as the U.S. and NATO forces pull out. And this, of course, would have a direct impact on India, as well as the U.S. and the world community. So we can't afford to let happen in Afghanistan what is now happening in Iraq. I think, part of the reason we are seeing ISIS come back in Iraq is because the U.S. did not leave any forces in Iraq, and we can't afford to let that same situation happen in Afghanistan. So I think if Prime Minister Modi makes that connection between the two, that would be very helpful.
Other issues which the Prime Minister likely to raise, according to sources in the MEA telling us that likely to raise the issue of energy security, likely to raise the issue of climate change, likely to raise issues which now go beyond just terrorism and Kashmir. As you rightly said, there's a trap out there. And in a sense, Nawaz Sharif has set a trap which the Prime Minister could walk into by responding to Mr. Sharif, or he could show himself to be statesman-like and reflect on the larger issues that concern the global community. Do you believe that that will resonate better in 2014? What really resonates in an international fora is if an Indian Prime Minister comes and talks about issues that stretch beyond South Asia.
I think that's correct. I think, for too long, India was seen through the prism of the Indo-Pakistani conflict. But now we see with India's economy growing and India playing a much more influential role on the world stage, particularly in the Asia-Pacific. The U.S. is really looking to India to help provide a stable bounce of power in the Asia-Pacific so that no one country can dominate that region. That's a critical goal for the U.S., and India plays an important role. And I think we saw that with Prime Minister Modi's hectic foreign policy schedule over the last few weeks. He had a wildly successful visit to Japan a couple of weeks ago. He received the Chinese president for a visit last week that was frankly overshadowed by a border dispute up in Ladakh. But I think, you know, these two visits together with China and Japan really set the stage for how the U.S. sees India's role in Asia.
Let me ask you two more specific questions. Question number one, is there still a residue of, let me think of the right word, of some element of animal and mistrust, if I may use the word, about Narendra Modi in the US establishment? Are they entirely comfortable with him given the backdrop, denying him a visa for a decade, or is that all past history now as far as America is concerned?
Well, look, I think if you look 6 months ago, everybody was talking about, you know, will the visa issue be a factor if Modi is elected, and would he hold that against the U.S.? Well, look, here we are. He's been elected, he's been in power 4 months. Nobody's talking about the visa issue. Everybody wants to put that aside. You know, Secretary Kerry made the point when he was in India that this was a decision taken previously, not under this administration. So I think it's clear that people want to leave aside that issue.
It's pragmatism. America's business is business. They see they're ready to do business with Narendra Modi today.
But I think, you know, Modi has also shown that he's interested in improving the economy, building India up for all Indians. I think he has proven that these issues, which may have plagued his reputation in the past, are going away, and that he is focused on the whole nation of India and bringing the whole nation of India up.
Let me put one final question to you. Why is it that the US media seems to be a step behind the establishment? If you say the establishment is excited about meeting Narendra Modi, Washington is excited about Narendra Modi, why don't I see the New York Times reflecting anything about India or Pakistan? Is South Asia still not on the map of the United States unless there's a terror attack in that region?
Well, look, I think South Asia is very much on the map of the United States and the Obama administration. But the fact is, Obama has been pummeled by a series of global crises, whether you're talking about the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, ISIS gains in Iraq and Syria, Russian aggression in the Ukraine, and frankly, his foreign policy standing has been dipping because of, you know, the perception that he's not handling these crises sufficiently. So I think one of the risks we have with the visit, the summit between Obama and Modi, is that it could be overshadowed by these multiple global crises that are happening, and that would be very unfortunate, because I think, you know, this is an opportunity that the two countries should not miss, because in fact they need each other to deal with these global crises. But I think you're right. If you look at the newspaper today, it's about ISIS, but the U.S. is conducting military operations in these countries. This is a big deal for the U.S.
Okay. Lisa, Kurtis, appreciate your joining us. What's clear is the United States is focusing on ISIS, but we in the Indian media are focusing on Narendra Modi, and hopefully we will find some connection between the world's focus, or America's focus, on ISIS and India's concerns about terrorism. Will Narendra Modi respond to Nawaz Sharif's use of the K word with the use of the T word, India's concern about terror? Or will he completely ignore the Pakistani Prime Minister? The Indian Prime Minister is scheduled to speak at the United Nations General Assembly in about 40 minutes from now. Our focus will be on that. We'll be going across to all our correspondents who fanned across New York for all the very latest. Back in a moment on this special coverage on Headlines Today.